Let's be honest, missing kickshots can ruin your game. But what if I told you that there are few simple ways to calculate 1, 2 and even 3 rail kicks like a pro? I'm gonna share all the secrets behind the ultimate kicking systems top players use to never miss again, so by the end you will be able to execute those tricky kickshots with much higher confidence and precision. Starting with one rail kickshots, we need to understand what is angle of incidence and angle of reflection. Let's imagine that cue ball is placed somewhere on the table, and if we draw a line from this diamond to this diamond, then we can see that it is located perfectly on this line. And this means that if we hit the cue ball exactly along this line, it bounces from the rail with exactly the same angle and goes towards the side pocket. So this is the first very important information, that the angle of reflection will be the same as the angle of incidence, but we need to remember one thing. This happens only in a scenario where we are hitting the cue ball slightly above its center using natural speed. What spin and speed we use to hit the cue ball is extremely important and highly impacts especially the angle of reflection. Let's imagine a situation like this. We need to pot the one ball, but the cue ball is blocked by 3 ball. Let's assume that we were able to find the correct point on the rail where to hit the cue ball, and how to do this I will explain a bit later. If we hit the cue ball only slightly above its center with natural speed, then it goes with natural rotation along the correct path and hits the one ball. And this line will be our reference to compare the impact of spin and speed. If we try to use natural speed again but apply topspin, then the angle of reflection widens, and this happens because topspin applied to the cue ball wants to bring it towards this direction. So in this case, if we try to hit the cue ball with low spin, then this spin wants to bring it towards this direction. And the situation will be very similar if we try to use side spin on the cue ball. If I hit the cue ball with left spin, then the angle of reflection widens again, but as you can see, this path looks a bit different because the cue ball after contacting the rail changes its path immediately. So in this case, if we hit the cue ball with right spin, then the angle of reflection shallows and the cue ball touches the long rail first. Okay, but if we are talking about side spin, then I need to show you this very interesting thing. If we try to hit the cue ball perpendicular to the rail using center ball, then after contact with this rail, the cue ball comes back along the same path and hits our Q-tip again. But when we use side spin, then after contact with the rail, the angle of reflection changes, and we can very easily predict it and use this knowledge when executing one rail kick shots. Let's assume that the cue ball is placed on the foot spot. If I hit the cue ball straight towards the long rail and one tip to the right, then after contact with the rail it goes towards this diamond on the opposite rail. And the same thing happens if we use left spin, but then the cue ball goes to the other side. So in this case, if we change the amount of spin and hit 2 tips to the certain side, then the angle of reflection widens again and the cue ball goes towards the corner or side pocket. And this system doesn't change if we are hitting perpendicular to the short rail, but this time if we hit with 1 tip to a certain side, then the cue ball goes towards the corner pockets, while a hit with 2 tips to the left or right causes it to go towards the side pockets. So let's assume that the cue ball is on the foot spot and we need to pot the one ball into the corner pocket. We know that we should go 2 diamonds to the side, so in this case we need to hit the cue ball with 2 tips to the right. Alright, but let's move the cue ball 2 diamonds away along the side rail. This time we actually cannot hit the side rail perfectly straight because there is a pocket. We need to aim a bit differently, and if I hit the cue ball towards the third diamond on the long rail using a bit of topspin, then the natural angle of reflection causes it to go towards this direction. So in this case, if I want to go one diamond further, then we need to hit the cue ball one tip to the right. But on the other hand, we can experience a situation like this, where we cannot use natural angle of reflection, as well as hit the cue ball straight on the rail, because there are blockers. In this situation, we need to cause the cue ball to make a contact with the rail further to avoid the blockers. If I try to go towards the first diamond, then we know that the natural angle of reflection cuts the short rail, and our final point is located outside the table, one diamond away from the object ball. We need to go one diamond earlier, so we need to hit the cue ball with one tip to the left. This amount of side spin causes the angle of reflection to shallow, and the cue ball goes towards the corner pocket to pot the one ball. But what is very important, you need to keep in mind that this works only in situation when we use natural speed. Let's imagine a situation that the cue ball and object ball are placed in positions like on this graphic. Because both of these balls are placed practically on the same line parallel to the long rail, then we can use this simple system. We can see that the object ball is placed 4 diamonds away from the cue ball, and the only thing we need to do is divide this distance by 2 and draw a line towards the opposite side rail, which will be perpendicular to this rail. This action will indicate our final aiming point on the rail's edge, where we need to hit the cue ball. But what is very important to note, we need to use natural speed and apply just a bit of topspin. This is an absolutely crucial thing, because if I use more speed and different spin, then the angle of reflection will be completely different and we will miss the object ball. And of course, this system works exactly the same on the entire surface of the table. In the next scenario, cue ball is placed in the center area of the table, while the object ball is a pocket hanger. Because the object ball is extremely close to the pocket, we can use 2-to-1 kicking system. First of all, we need to number each diamond on the side rail where we are hitting the cue ball using full numbers, and we start from this corner pocket where is number 0. In the next step, we need to number in the same order the opposite side rail. And now we face the most important part, where we need to connect each full number on the left side rail with the same number on the opposite rail, but divided by 2. So in this case, our first track line goes from the first diamond to the half diamond on the opposite rail. The second track line goes from the second diamond to the first diamond, and consequently we need to find each next track line in same order. After all these steps, we can see that the cue ball is placed perfectly on the track line from 6th to 3rd diamond, and this means that we can hit it exactly on the 3rd diamond to make a contact with one ball. But once again, what is extremely important in this system, we need to use natural speed and apply touch of topspin. Okay, but you can ask me what will happen if the cue ball is placed somewhere in between those track lines, like in this situation. This time the cue ball is placed between track lines 5 and 6, but a bit closer to the 5. The only thing we need to do is to find another track line, which will be adjusted evenly in relation to both track lines 5 and 6. So in this case, our final aiming point is located slightly before the 2.5 diamond, and if we apply the correct speed and spin, then we will be able to pot the one ball. And of course, this system works exactly the same if we need to hit the cue ball towards the short rail, But the most important thing is to find our final track line correctly to indicate the right point on the rail. Alright, but what will happen in a situation where the object ball is located far away from the pocket in a completely random place? First of all, we need to find a midpoint between the cue ball and the object ball. Because we are hitting the side rail first, then in second step we need to draw a line from the center of the object ball to the edge of the side rail, and this line needs to be parallel to the short rail. Now we can see a point on the rail's edge, and in the next step we need to connect this point with the midpoint between the cue ball and the object ball. And this is the moment where we face the most important part of our calculations, because we need to move this line parallel to the center of the cue ball. This action will indicate our final aiming point on the rail's edge where we need to hit the cue ball. And once again, it is very important to use natural speed and apply a touch of topspin to achieve the right angle of reflection. Okay, but how we can pocket the object ball? This is actually a quite simple thing, but we need to slightly change our calculations. The crucial thing is to start our considerations not from the center of the object ball, but from the center of the ghost ball where the cue ball needs to hit it. This one small change in calculations results in a bit different final aiming point and opens the possibility to pocket the object ball. And we can use this system to pocket an object ball which is located in completely random areas on the table, but we need to remember to always start our calculations from the center of the ghost ball. Okay, so now we need to talk about this situation. We need to get from 4 ball to the 8 ball, but the biggest problem makes this stripe ball, which completely blocks access to our ball. However, even if we remove this ball, we still have a pretty big problem, because we face a perfect straight-in shot, and the cue ball is quite close to the side rail, which makes it extremely hard to cheat the pocket or trying to play a deep draw shot. But don't worry, there's super easy fix, because we can play a one-rail kick to escape this situation. The first thing we need to do is imagine a ghost ball and measure the distance from its center point to the edge of the short rail. In the next step, we need to carefully move this distance along the same direction, which will allow us to determine the exact aiming point. If we hit the cue ball with bit of topspin and use not that much speed, then it touches rail first, hits 4 ball exactly at its ghost ball, and goes immediately towards top area of the table, so we are able to get a perfect shape on the 8 ball. However, we can make this situation even more difficult by placing another stripe ball that will block the optimal path. In this particular case, we need to play a deep draw shot that will allow us to avoid contact with the stripe ball. But what is very important to note, you need to aim a little further on the short rail, because as you remember, backspin shortens the angle of reflection, so we need to take this into account in our considerations. If we execute that shot correctly, then the cue ball avoids the stripe ball and goes directly towards the top area, creating a perfect shape on the 8 ball. When talking about 2-rail kicks, I would like to discuss 2 systems. Let's imagine a situation like this, where the cue ball and object ball are located in random places on the table. In this case, to calculate a 2-rail kick, we can use a system which is called midpoint parallel shift. First of all, we need to find a midpoint between the cue ball and the object ball, and then visualize a straight line from this point to the center of the pocket. In the next step, you need to parallel shift this line to the cue ball, and this action gives you the required line of aim and indicates a point on the rail's edge where you need to hit the cue ball. What is very important to note that we need to roll the cue ball and apply a bit of running spin, because if we hit too hard and apply other spin, then we will not be able to make a contact with object ball. And this system works exactly the same if we reverse the position of the balls, but this time we need to hit the short rail first and use a bit of right spin. What is extremely important to note, you need to make the parallel shift carefully, because each small mistake can cause a wrong aiming point on the rail. But in some cases, this system gives slightly different results, and we need to slightly change our mindset. In this situation, if we find our aiming point using a parallel shift, then we can see that the cue ball is not able to hit the object ball. When the angle of incidence is a bit higher, then the cue ball goes too long, and we actually have two options to avoid it. First of all, you need to be able to visualize how much this error might be and aim a bit further in relation to our main aiming point. This shift needs to be practically the same as the possible error, so this ability will be extremely helpful in situations like this, where we need to slightly change contact points with the rails. We can also use another solution, where this time our goal is to aim exactly at the point which we indicated using the parallel shift, but this time we need to use different spin on the cue ball. As you can see, this time I need to hit the cue ball practically at its center vertical line, and the result is completely different than before. If we try to increase the angle much more, then this effect is still visible, because the cue ball goes again very long. However, this time topspin is not enough to hit the object ball, and we are forced to use a bit of right spin to change the angle of reflection. Alright, but sometimes the object ball is very close to the corner pocket, and in this particular case we can use another more complicated system, which is called the +2 rail kicking system. In this specific scenario, the first thing we need to do is number our short rail where we are hitting the cue ball, and we need to start from this corner pocket where is number 1. In the next step, we go half a diamond along this short rail, and there is number 2. And consequently, another half diamond, and there is number 3. Going forward, number 4, 5, 6 and 7. Okay, so after this step, we need to number each diamond on the long rail where our object ball is placed, but this time we start from the current position of the object ball, and there is number 0. Going forward 1 diamond, and there is number 1. And consequently, each next diamond refers to the next full number. In the following step, we need to connect each full number on both rails, and after all of these actions, we are able to indicate our track lines, which we can use in the next step. If we look closer, then we can see that the cue ball is placed exactly on the third track line, and this means that we need to hit it on number 3 on the short rail. However, once again, what is very important, we need to use running spin and natural speed to be able to make a contact with the object ball. If we apply too much or too little spin, then we will not be able to make a contact with the object ball, because the cue ball will go on a different path. Okay, but you can ask me what will happen if the cue ball is not placed on any of those track lines. And actually, this is not a problem, because in this situation we can see that the cue ball is located somewhere between track lines 3 and 4, so we need to shift one of these track lines to find another point on the short rail, which will be exactly between these numbers. If we use natural speed and running spin, then we will be able to make a contact with the object ball. Alright, but there is another scenario, because we can also move the object ball higher along the side rail. In this case, we need to once again indicate our track lines, but the only thing that changes is number 0, which moves to the first diamond where the object ball is at this moment. Numbers on the short rail remain in the same positions as before, but if we connect these numbers with numbers on the side rail, then we can see that our track lines change a bit, and the cue ball is placed almost on track line number 2. And this means that we need to aim almost at number 2 on the short rail to make a contact with the object ball. And of course, situation can be even more complicated if the cue ball is located on track line number 1. In this specific situation, we cannot hit on number 1 because it is located in the corner pocket, so the key is to hit the short rail slightly before the pocket and apply more side spin. This opens the possibility to make a contact with the object ball, because if we use the same spin as before, then the cue ball goes too long and hits the short rail first. Okay, but there is one more scenario which I need to mention, because we can also move the object ball 1 diamond away, but this time along the short rail. Numbers on the short rail once again remain in same places, and number 0 once again is in the same place where the object ball is. But in the next step we need to go half a diamond along the short rail, and there is number 1. At the point where the corner pocket is, we have number 2, and if we go around the pocket, then each full diamond refers to the next full number. And once again, we need to connect all of these numbers to indicate our new track lines, and this time we can see that the cue ball is placed somewhere between track lines number 4 and 5, but closer to the 5. We need to shift our cue to indicate our final track line, and using natural speed and running spin, we are able to make a contact with the object ball. In the case of free roll kick shots, this situation is quite simple, because I would like to discuss only one system, but at the end I will show you a powerful trick that will completely change the way you think. The system I will be talking about is actually very easy to understand, and the only thing you need to know is to find your free reference lines. Let's imagine a situation where the cue ball is very close to this corner pocket, and think for a moment about what you need to do to pocket this ball into this corner pocket using free rails. And this is the moment where we need to talk about reference line number 1. Our first line goes from this corner pocket to the second diamond on this long rail. We can see that the cue ball is placed exactly on this line, so if we hit the cue ball along this path, then it goes towards this corner pocket, contacting free rails. But what is very important is that we need to apply a lot of running spin and natural speed, because these factors will be essential when we talk about executing free rail kick shots. So in this case, if the cue ball is placed on this line and we need to pot the object ball which is placed close to this corner pocket, then we can hit exactly on this diamond to pocket the object ball using free rails. Okay, but let's come back to our first scenario where we have only the cue ball on the table. This time we need to talk about our reference line number 2. This line goes once again from this corner pocket, but this time to the third diamond on the same side rail. And this means that if we hit the cue ball on this diamond using running spin and natural speed, then the cue ball after contact with free rails goes towards this direction and hits the first diamond on the side rail. So in this case, if we put the object ball very close to this diamond, then we can use this reference line to make a contact with this ball or pocket it. Alright, and this is the moment where we need to talk about our reference line number 3. This line is going from the same corner pocket again, but this time to the first diamond on the same side rail. So So in this case, if we hit the cue ball exactly along this path, it touches 3 rails and goes towards this direction and makes contact with the short rail right before the corner pocket. And once again, if we put the object ball very close to this area, then using this reference line we can make a contact with this ball or pocket it. Okay, so as you can see, if the cue ball is placed somewhere in this area, then we can use these 3 reference lines to go in between this area and finish very close to this pocket. But what is very important to note is that if we use the first reference line, then cue ball goes along this path and makes a contact with the rails at these points. When we use the second reference line, then the cue ball contacts the short rail a bit further and the side rail a bit earlier. But on the other hand, when we use the third reference line, then the cue ball contacts the short rail much earlier and the side rail much further than before. And well, you can ask me what will happen if the cue ball is not on one of those reference lines. Let's assume that the cue ball is placed in the center point of the table and we need to pocket the one ball, which is a pocket hanger. Because the one ball is placed right in front of a pocket, we need to use our reference line number 1 to find a new correct point of contact with the rail. We need to parallel shift this line to the current position of the cue ball and then find another line which will be exactly between those 2 lines. And this final line indicates our aiming point on the rail's edge where we should hit the cue ball. If we roll the ball and use running spin, then it follows this path and makes a contact with the one ball. But at this moment we can spot a very interesting thing, because if we compare this path of the cue ball with our reference line number 1, then we can see that contact points on this side rail are almost the same despite the fact that the cue ball touches first 2 rails in different points. Okay, but if the object ball is placed in this area, then to find our new track line we need to use reference line number 2. And once again, parallel shift to the current position of the cue ball and another shift to finish perfectly in between those lines. We can see our new aiming point on the rail, and with correct spin and speed, we are able to make a contact with the object ball. And similarly, if we once again change the position of the object ball and put it in this area, then consequently we need to use our third reference line to find our final aiming point following all steps. And well, let's assume that the cue ball and object ball are placed in positions like on this graphic. If we check all of our reference lines, then we can see that each of them doesn't match the current position of the object ball. And this means that once again we need to find another track line using 2 reference lines which are in the closest proximity to the object ball. We can see that the object ball is placed somewhere in between reference lines number 1 and 2, so in this case we need to shift our cue to the current position of the object ball in relation to both of these lines. This line indicates a point on the rail which is located almost perfectly in between these lines, so in this case if we stand right behind the cue ball, then we need to hit it almost perfectly in between these 2 points. If we use natural speed and running spin again, then the cue ball follows the correct path and hits the object ball. But of course we can experience another scenario where this time the cue ball is placed out of our reference lines, as well as the object ball is far away from the pocket. This time calculating our final aiming point is a bit more difficult and we need to add one more step. The object ball is placed in the same position as in the previous scenario, so we know what path the cue ball should follow after contact with the second side rail. This time, to find our final aiming point, we need to use reference lines number 1 and 2 and divide the distance between them by 2. We can see our new reference line, which we need to parallel shift to the current position of the cue ball. In the next step, we need to find another line which is located perfectly in between our previous lines, which will indicate our final aiming point on the rail, where we need to hit the cue ball. However, there is one trick that you can use when executing a free rail kick, when the object ball is right in front of a corner pocket. I can put the cue ball anywhere on the table and make the object ball all the time. The first thing you need to know is this reference line, which goes from this corner pocket to the second diamond on this rail. And this means that if the cue ball is anywhere on this line, then using running spin we can hit exactly at the second diamond to make the object ball using free rails. But what is more powerful, we can use that reference line to indicate a point which is 5 to 10 feet past the table, and in my case it will be the logo of my channel, which is placed exactly on my cue case. This is our reference point, and regardless of where the cue ball is placed, you can aim exactly at this point with running spin, and I promise you, you will be able to make that free rail kick every time, no matter where you have to shoot from. Remember, every rail on the table can be your friend if you understand the geometry behind it. Practice these systems, trust the math, and soon you will be hitting those kick shots like a pro.